Hello everyone, and welcome to another session of Career Services Guest Webinar. Today we have with us Ruchika from Microsoft, and our topic for today is thinking about career transition. Let's talk. Well, I hope everyone is as excited about this session as I am. If you have any questions during the session, please type them into the Q&A box. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we'll also have the time for questions at the end. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce Ruchika to all of you. Ruchika is a YouTuber, influencer, a public speaker, and a passionate HR professional who loves engaging and hiring the best talent for Microsoft. She comes with over 9 years of experience, in which she also worked with Novartis and Deloitte India. She recently discovered a passion for blogging, which is aimed at helping students and job seekers land their dream job. She is on a journey to coach and mentor as many as possible. So without further ado, I request Ruchika to take the center stage. Ruchika, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shivam, for that wonderful introduction. Well, good evening, everybody. Whoever is watching me, firstly, thank you so much for choosing to, go through this session on a Friday evening. I truly appreciate and I'm grateful that you've chosen to spend or start your weekend with me. And I'm really grateful for that. So before we get into the session for today and we'll talk about a lot of things, I'll quickly introduce myself, and I do have some call outs to make before I get into my introduction. So I don't want to keep it, a monologue for sure. I know that the audience that I'm addressing, they come with a fair bit of experience themselves. They have experience the corporate world themselves. So feel free to, either raise your hand and then Shivam and team can put you, on the spot, and you can share if my story resonates with you in some shape and form. Feel free to type your questions or your thoughts so that I can hear from you as well, in case, again, if my story is resonating with you. So in all honesty, when Shivam did reach out to me, I think a couple of weeks back on doing this session, I was a little hesitant because majority of my sessions are always towards students. And they're typically in the age group of 18 to 20, 22 years. And I mean no disrespect to anybody. So I was a little nervous to begin with because, again, I was like, what am I going to talk to these people who themselves have so much of experience? So there was that hesitation. And of course, Shivam was a little persistent. He's like, I'm sure you have a wonderful story to share. And, this would be a great topic to discuss as well. So here I am. Like I think Shivam already introduced me, I am a storyteller at heart. I've actually become a storyteller, I think, less than a year back. And I'm totally enjoying every bit of storytelling. I think I'll probably start from the very beginning. And I do want to kind of call out that I'm not here to give any sort of yarn to anybody. This is just some of the things that I went through in my corporate career over the last 9 years. And I do want to kind of weave it around my experiences, share my insights on how I had to tackle some difficult situations at hand, and also share some life lessons with you as you make that career transition eventually, right? So to start off with, my name is Ruchika Rocque. Yes, it is Rocque. I know a lot of people tend to get confused with my last name, which is why I generally don't say it aloud in public forums, but I thought, why not here? It's a safe space. So yeah, and I also kind of feel a little weird saying my last name because, again, people tend to butcher it. I've been called things like Ruchika Rocque, Ruchika Rocque, and yeah, people just get creative with it. So it's Ruchika Rocque, and I grew up in an army background. My dad served the Indian Army for about 37 years. So life was pretty adventurous growing up. We moved around quite a bit. And I think that adventure was something that became a part of my, my personality, and something that even today, I draw a lot of inspiration from. Like, if there is adventure, I'm there. And so my career has been very adventurous as well. Starting off with when I was a kid, of course, dad was away and mom was there, to take care of me and my sibling. And, like many of us, we grew up in Indian households where if you didn't study or do well in life, I mean, ultimately the thing was that, hey, if you don't study, you probably will not get a good job. And so growing up, there was always this pressure on me to prove myself. And unfortunately, or for whatever reason, I was a below average kid. The blessing in my life was my younger sibling, who was the exact opposite of me. He was a topper. So if I was struggling with, my math, he was scoring like 98% in his 10th. So those were the transitions that we were, the differences that we were trying to kind of deal with growing up. And it was pretty stressful for a child to be compared with your sibling, who's like topping everywhere. That kind of caused me to be a lot underconfident. I was very nervous. I was very not sure about myself. And so one of the things that gave me a lot of, energy was sports. So I said, if I can't top a class, why not I'll go and, top somewhere. And so I kind of put all my energy into sports, and I was out on the ground playing all the sports possible, whereas my brother was topping his classes. But then, of course, as Indian mentality stands, there was always this comparison, me being compared with my brother, me being compared with my cousins, my neighbors. And so I grew up with a lot of, underconfidence. Like I was just not sure about myself. I was a very, not the personality that you see today. I was the exact opposite. But then life happened, and, we finally grew up and decided, okay, you have to do something in life, can't just sit and chill. So it was always the easy path for me. I was always, more focused on, okay, which is the easiest path that does not require too much of studying and has fair, ROIs. So I chose the easiest path, that was a graduation in commerce. And with that also, I used to kind of bunk classes and be outside of college, representing my college in all the sports. And 3 years just passed like that. And then came the big question, what next? So when that question was asked, I was again clueless. I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. I was again not a studious one. So, cracking the CAT and XAT and all the, entrance exams for MBAs was just out of the question. I did write some of the entrance exams and I got miserably poor marks. And finally, somehow I managed to get a seat in a government seat in a tier 3 college in Pune. And again, life was good. I said, okay, let me, choose the easiest. And I don't mean any disrespect to any HRs if there are. But for me, I think HR was the easiest at that point in time. And I chose HR as a subject, as something that I wanted to specialize in. Now, again, going to the easy, laid back attitude that I had, my scores, my percentage was was a struggle. I was, like I said, below average. So when the placement started, I wasn't even getting qualified to sit for placements in many of the organizations. And that kind of took a toll on me. That's when I realized that I said, all said and done, this attitude is not going to fly long, because if you want to make something out of yourself, you really have to sit down and work hard. Thankfully, I don't know, my lucky stars or whatever, there was this one company that decided to come on campus, and they decided to reduce their CGPA, and I kind of managed to sit through the process. And that was Deloitte. That was the only company, mind you. So it was like a lottery for me to make sure that I, sit for it and make sure that I crack the entire process. And I'm also talking about a time, this is about 10 years back, guys. So those days, and I mean, I'm not that old, but still those days, LinkedIn and all this was not very active. Like, people weren't active. Social media was not there the way it is right now. So I was really scared about, landing a job. Forget making a career. Making a career was like secondary. At least landing a job, to go back home and telling my parents that I don't have a job, so you have to take care of me, was like the most depressing thing ever. But Deloitte happened, and again, Deloitte was also hiring, very small numbers. And I remember there was a pool campus event. I'm not sure if how many of you actually sat for campus placements, but generally it's like a pool campus event, and especially for tier 3 colleges. And there were like 700 people, and I was like one of the 7 people who got, offered. And that was like my stardom moment. I was extremely proud of myself, so much so that I think I flaunted my newfound, offer everywhere. Like even I think in family gatherings that, oh yeah, I've got a job with Deloitte and, this high flyer or whatever. Fast forward to joining Deloitte. Deloitte was a fairly good stint. Before I kind of move into the next slide, I do want to kind of explain what this is. So just imagine that this line is my career, right? Point A signifies the beginning, and point B signifies where I am at this point in time, right? Again, I do want to call out, I don't intend to work till I'm 60. I hopefully probably would have made enough money to retire. So I'm planning to retire by maybe in the next couple of years. So which is why you see the line quite short. So back then, point A, which was my first job in Deloitte, this was what my job was, right? It was a 9-to-5 desk job. Obviously, I realized that there was no growth in my role, the role that I was doing. There were no learnings, and there were no challenges. And I figured that out, I think, after about 6 months. Yeah, believe me, it took me 6 months to figure out that this job does not have any growth, any learnings, no challenges, nothing. And obviously, why it took me so long? Because I'm sure everybody remembers their first job, right? They remember how exciting it is to get that first paycheck, and you splurge it on your weekends and you buy fancy gifts for your family. And so it takes you a couple of months to really settle down. So it took me about 6 months to really figure out what this job was. So I'll quickly explain what my job was so that it gives you some context into what I used to do. So I was a resource manager, and resource managers are typically, people who are associated with these service-based industries like Deloitte, PwC, where they are actually crunching data for the employees that are working on for their clients, right? So I was associated with the tax group, and so I had to kind of work on Excel sheets day in and day out. That was my job. I had to crunch data. I had to figure out how many hours is this particular group of 500 people spending on a client. What do we charge the client? All of that. So I was very good at, I still am very good at my Excel. I don't want to flaunt too much, but yeah, I think in my team at least I can do very good VLOOKUPs. And I think that's like been my superpower even now. People come to me to do VLOOKUPs. So that was one skill that I learned in that job. But other than that, I was obviously I was stable. I was living on my own, living away from my parents. I could support myself in whatever way. Obviously, when you're just starting in your career, you have very little demands, right? You don't have a family to support you. You're happy with whatever you have. You're okay with spending your $500 on movies every weekend. So life is set. So it was good. 6 months into the job, something changed, right? What changed was there was a new boss that took over, and this boss was the catalyst that caused me to actually think on if I want to do this job for the next 5-10 years. And even till date, I'm actually grateful for that person, although he wasn't the best of managers, but he really caused me to think through on if I was actually, fit to do that job, right? And so obviously when the person took over, my personality went through a shift, right? I became even more underconfident. I was absolutely non-passionate about everything. I was not a go-getter the way I am today. I was absolutely comfortable in my comfort zone. I was making whatever money that I was making. And so there were no dreams or aspirations in my life. And what that person came and did, he kind of changed the entire environment. Now, maybe there was some things around that particular team or whatever, I don't want to comment, but that manager had something, very negative towards me. And he categorically made it very obvious, he would not take any of my opinions. He would not appreciate my views. He would constantly be, be negative about my work. And to the point that I realized that he started giving me more work. And he wasn't doing it because he wanted me to succeed. He was doing it because he wanted me to fail. And I still remember at that point in time, there was this one breaking point where I just broke down in front of him. And it was actually embarrassing that, I was so rattled about all of this. He was like just piling on work, and he was expecting me to turn around things like within, few hours. And it was just too much for me. I was not getting energy. I was just not happy about anything at all. And so finally, after tolerating that environment for about another I would say close to about another 6 to 7 months, I realized that this is not going to happen. This is not how I plan on working, or at least spending my my next 60 years. Back then I planned to work till I was 60. So I was like, I'm not going to work like this for the next 40 years. So I don't want to comment on my age, but I was somewhere around. Now you can do the math. So I was not happy at all. I was like, no way can I do this job, and I need to get out. But at the same time, I was also aware that the role that I was doing was very industry specific. So this role typically only exists in organizations like PwC, Deloitte, the big fours, and maybe those other organizations like Infosys, etc., where they have these resource manager roles. So the industry was not very big for me. So even if I had to look for a job out there, there was no way that anybody would hire someone who just comes with 1 year of experience. And added to that, I didn't want to do that job. So I was pretty sure that I cannot last in this role for long. So I waited for like a couple of more months. I remember that organization had like a lock-in period where you had to spend, and I think many organizations do, where you have to spend a certain time in a certain role, and then you can move for internal rotation or whatever. So I completed that, and then I looked for opportunities. And again, I'm somebody who's very adventurous. Yeah, sometimes it kind of, I fall on my face because of that. But at that point in time, it paid off. So I did some, inner soul searching, and I questioned myself on what is it that I want to do in my life? What kind of job is it that I want to do? So the one thing that I remembered from my childhood was traveling. I love traveling, right? But obviously nobody's going to pay me to travel. I wasn't a YouTuber, or I wasn't like a social media influencer. The second thing that I really liked doing was I liked interacting with people, right? So I sat down and I researched on what are the different teams within HR which do this kind of a job, right? Where there is some sort of traveling involved, and there is some sort of external conversations that they're doing with candidates. And so there's learning and development, there's compensation and benefits, there is, the HR VP role. And then there is, of course, the recruitment team. Now, recruitment sounded pretty adventurous to me. And that's when I kind of started thinking, I said, no, I think I need to do some research and find out who exactly is the head of recruitment in this organization, and do some, background like check and like find out from people. And luckily, there was this head of recruitment who used to sit in the same building as me. And I don't know how many of you are aware of Deloitte, the Hyderabad office, but there were like, I think 10 or 11 buildings spread across the city. So there used to be shuttles that would run between these cities. And this particular person would move between these offices. I think he would sit in like one of the offices 2 days. And then, so I kind of, and I'm a little ashamed of it, but yeah, I kind of, followed him a bit and found out from his team when exactly does he sit in that office. And I found out, when he comes there. And the day that he was there, I remember I just walked into his office and I introduced myself. And I said, and I was that desperate because I didn't even care if he fires me or complains about me, because I just wanted to get out of that team. So I walked up to him. I said, hey, my name is Ruchika. I have recently completed my lock-in period with this and this team. I'm definitely looking for a new opportunity. Please let me know if there is anything in your team that I can interview for. And I was obviously scared, but thankfully he didn't say anything. He said, yes, there are opportunities. We'll get you interviewed. And he did. And I got the role. And so from there, I realized that not all opportunities come to you. At times, there are opportunities that you have to actually search for. And that's something that is very, very important. I know that we live in this era where we think that, oh, opportunities will just fly in from somewhere, that Bollywood kind of a thing. No, you have to make those opportunities happen for yourself. So fast forward from there, I joined this new team, and I was a recruiting coordinator. That's where I started from. And again, for those of you who don't know what a recruiting coordinator is, they basically coordinate for interviews. They're the ones who will go and collect the interviewee from the reception, bring them in, whatever, tell the interviewer that your candidate is there, do all the paperwork, all of that, make sure that, the person is called and informed, reminded. So that's where my recruitment journey started. And I actually love that bit of it, because even today, like if somebody tells me to go and pick up a candidate from the reception, I'm mighty excited because I've done it. And I have no shame in doing it again, right? In fact, I remember that, so this is a separate story. I remember not a couple of weeks back, somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn, and this person was obviously looking for an opportunity in Microsoft. And this person said that, I remember you had, you were the recruiting coordinator in Deloitte, and you had, ushered me from the reception to this place. And it's so funny that, life comes back in full circle. And, here I am asking if there are any opportunities. And I was pretty surprised. And actually, it felt good that, wow, okay, I have kind of made some significant progress in my career. Okay, so back to my story. And actually, I'm not looking at the chat, but if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Or Shivam?
Hey, Ruchika, yeah, Shivam here.
Yeah, I see 2 questions.
Yeah, so there's one actually from Harsimran Singh Gandhi. The first one is how one can move from telecom domain to finance domain.
Okay.
Second one is again how one can move from telecom product area to Word of Microsoft or Google as a product manager.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll take these questions towards the end if that's okay. I'm sure we'll have time remaining. It's 6:20. So I'll park because I know that there were questions around how do you make that transition, and I'll come to that. Yeah. So anyways, fast forward to, this role, I was very excited. But then after about a year or so, I realized that what next? I also started, having conversations with my manager that I wanted to do a recruiter role, like the recruiter who rolls out offers, the recruiter who does stakeholder management. That's what a recruiter does, right? The recruiter who's talking to candidates and all of that, sourcing candidates. And I was categorically told again and again that that it was not okay. Like I was not fit to be a recruiter, even though I had the flair, I had the, the skill, communication was good, I had everything. But again and again, I was told that no, it's not going to happen for you. And so after some time, I realized that was another catalyst that, affected me. And I realized, okay, if I'm not feeling worthy enough, then, I better look for something where I am, given that respect. And so, started my next phase of my journey, which was looking for a job, which was much more richer than what I was doing, right? And so then again, I did some soul searching, and I realized that I had to get into something which was front-ending, front-facing, like an actual, hardcore recruiter. But I knew that I did not have the experience for it. So there were some things that, I had to keep in mind while I was looking for a new job. And that's when Novartis happened. Now, Novartis came to me with an offer which was on contract. And I don't know how many of you are aware, but as soon as somebody says the word contract, people think that it's like a bad word. The mentality around that word is not very accepting, right? So people think that contract means second grade citizen or general compartment mein travel karne wala banda. So that's the mentality, and I'm telling you because I've heard all of this, right? So I decided, I said, if staying here is not going to happen, nobody's going to hire me because I don't have the experience. Now, if this company is ready to take a bet on me, why not give it a shot? And so I accepted the contract offer. And a lot of people had a lot of things to say about it, starting from my own family. They were like, are you crazy? You're leaving your full-time job for this. What's wrong with you? And blah, blah, blah. And my friends were like, there's no stability. What if they throw you out of the company like that? And I said, forget it. It's okay. Even if they throw me out, at least I'll come out with some experience, And tomorrow, if I have to look for a job, at least I have some experience to show and not fake, right? So I accepted it, and my stint with Novartis started. It was great, fantastic. And 6 months into it, there was a third catalyst that something changed, something happened. And that something was I was scrolling through my LinkedIn, and I came across a post from my ex-colleague who was in Deloitte. And this person was also, I'm not sure if you heard that, but that was a bike. So this person was also, a tier 3 hire like me. And this person cracked an interview with Microsoft. So she posted saying that, hey, I'm starting my career with Microsoft, very excited. And I just stopped at that moment and I was like, what? Can people from such backgrounds get into Microsoft? I thought it was only for, the IITs and the IIMs and those super smart people. Like, how can she get into it? And then the next thought that I had was, okay, wait, if she can, so can I. And so the next 6 months, all I did was I put all my energy in stalking people. I mean, not in a bad way, but yeah, stalking people on LinkedIn, sending them requests, following up, letting them know that, I'm looking for an opportunity. And it took a good long time. After about 6 months, I finally got a message from the hiring manager, and it was the same team that I wanted to, join. It was the university recruiting team, and I was really passionate about early in career. That was something that I really wanted to do because I knew that there's a lot of scope in that. I interviewed for it, I got through, and I joined Microsoft. But there is another, a bit of a side story to this, which was I interviewed for Microsoft not once but twice. In 2015, when I was with Deloitte, I got a call and they called me, for the interview. Unfortunately, this was also a contractual role, which I was absolutely fine with, because at that point in time, I was done with Deloitte, mentally, emotionally, physically. So I just wanted out. But the role that they pitched me was that of a lateral recruiter. And I knew that I don't want to do that job because as soon as I saw the hiring manager, I just figured that, I better not fail at something like this because this is my dream company. So if I fail, at least I should fail at something that I know, right? What if they give me the offer and they expect me to kind of move mountains in my first year and I'm not able to do that? So I was not okay with faking in my interview and even forget faking, telling them that, yeah, I can do it and then not, coming through towards the end. So that was something that I was not okay with. Anyway, so moving on, what happened with, So point B, as you say, is my Microsoft job right now. And what it entails is it's flexible. When I say flexible, I have my own work times. I'm not doing a 9-to-5 job. There is so much of growth that I have seen in the last 4 years. There are so many opportunities and so many challenges that come with my role that I just don't get bored, right? Plenty of learnings. There are people who are constantly pushing, including my manager, who was the same manager, FII, who I had walked out on in my first interview. So she was the hiring manager that I said, no, I'm not interested in a lateral role, and I walked out on her. And she happened to be my current manager as well. So yeah, life is a circle, as they say. And what I got out of it, of course, was a great compensation. And there was growth. Like I could see that I am growing as a person. There is, there is this passion that is coming from me, within me. And my personality has taken a 360-degree turn. I'm much more confident. I mean, I can't even imagine talking and, speaking in front of an audience like this. Maybe just 4 years back, I would never have done that. I have become a go-getter. Yes, I'm actually, at times people do say that I'm a little ruthless when it comes to my work, but yeah, that's how I am. What it resulted in, I've become a public speaker and I've become an influencer. YouTubing is something which is fairly new. It's more around, helping job seekers and students, get their dream job or get their job in some way or the other. So that's something that I'm currently working on. So as you see, there is like a stark difference from what it was to what it is at this point in time. Yeah. Would anybody want to go off mute, share anything that, anything that resonated with you? So I'll just take one question because this one is an interesting one. If I transition from one career to the other after 8 years of experience, would I be considered fresher, beginner in the new role? And how would it affect on compensation? So here's my take on that. You have to be willing to let go of certain things when you make that transition. Not everything is going to be as per your list. Say, for example, me with 8 years of experience, if I want to jump into a sales role, I will not be drawing the same compensation that I am at this point in time. And I should be okay with that, right? And if you are okay with that, your passion and your knowledge will anyways be seen once you do make that transition. And maybe, your manager or the organization that you're associated with see that and compensate you or make, those relevant changes in your compensation later on. So you have to be a little realistic when it comes to, making that transition. It's not going to be 100%. Either it would be the role that is fantastic, something that you are really passionate about, something that gives you energy, or there would be something which would be, lessened somewhere. Might be a role wherein you have to work on weekends. It's like really stressful. So there might be something that you'll have to be okay with, and you should be okay with. If you really feel that this is something that you want to do in life, then, you should take a bet on that. So Suyash has a good question. Hi Ruchika, based on your experience, why professionals at times aspire for designation instead of the role which they enjoy? What prevents them to opt for a change? Fear of stability or change in social status or something? I think it's the society that it plays a very, like I said, there were so many people who had so many things to say when I made the transition from whatever resource management to this thing, from a full-time job to a contractual job. And people will constantly say that's how we are built. We are built to give free advice. Even if we don't understand anything, we are free to, give free advice. And that's something that is very important. So Yash, you have your hand raised.
Hi, Ruchika.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. It's interesting what you are sharing. It's something, the question which I asked about, that I think it's the society and our own fears, which are basically prevent us. Because just I would like to, in 1 minute, share my own story here.
Yeah.
That I gave up a job of assistant general manager and aspired to go, because this is what I enjoy about innovating new things. Yeah. And doing that particular thing has basically given a good growth to my career, rather than stucking up somewhere and fearing of society. True. Thanks. I am able to correlate with your story.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's a lovely story. And totally. And I've also come across people who've had to make that decision many times. They've had to either choose between, maybe the comfortable job, because probably they are supporting. I'll take an example of women who are in the workforce. Many times they can go above and beyond, but obviously they are supporting a family, they have children. And at times it is, they have to kind of take the back seat, right? Because they have to support their children. They cannot do a job which requires them to stretch for more than, 8-9 hours. I'll give you an example of my own mother. Because my dad was in the army and we had to move every now and then. She the only opportunity or the only career that she had, and I do want to share that she's a double MA. She was very, very brilliant. She could have done anything, but because of that, the only occupation that she could take up was being a teacher, right? Because that's where you decide, what gives you energy versus what is your priority. In your case, Suyash, I'm glad that you followed your heart, and I'm happy that you're doing what you really love. And even if you have to stretch, I'm sure you don't mind doing that stretch, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
And my current job is I'm working in the global innovation team of a Dutch multinational. I never thought about it.
That is so cool. Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. All right. Nitish, you have an interesting question. I'll get back to that towards the end, if that's okay. Okay.
So there are some questions on chat as well.
Oh, okay.
Like, I can bring them up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Rajat. I don't say that there are bad managers everywhere. It's there are some folks that are bad, but not everybody is bad. And in fact, I've noticed that people who work under bad managers turn out to be really good managers, because they do everything possible not to become, the manager that they served under. So that's something. And in fact, even me, I have a team that that's under me. I make sure that I'm the complete opposite, and I'm not taking any credit here, but I make sure that, I'm not that manager. Even if it means that, I have to constantly work at, say, my patience and, all of that, I do that. Shivam, you want to take some questions? I know that you said there were questions.
Yeah, there are more questions. Like this one question, though I am in brand marketing now, getting into product management in FMCG, but how this transition can work? Someone is in brand marketing and wants to get into product management in FMCG.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are extremes, I would say. See, I always feel that there has to be a ladder. It can't happen immediately. That switch will not. So for example, if I was in resource management, I could not be a recruiter. Nobody would hire me, and I had to be realistic. What I could recommend instead is, like, for example, let me give you the example of Microsoft. We do have a sales and marketing team. And within Microsoft, we see a lot of people making those switches. Right? So from the sales and marketing team, they come into product management. From product management, they go into some other team. And that's pretty common. In fact, we don't even have like a lock-in period. So if you are able to crack an interview in the sales and marketing team and serve maybe, 6 months, 7 months. So I think there's not even a period, like I said. You can immediately look for those product management roles within the organization and make that switch. It's easier. It's easier for you to make that switch within the organization than externally. So always be on the lookout for, that ladder. You'll have to have that ladder. There has to be a bridge. You cannot like jump from one to the other just like that. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
Yes, similar questions. One is, how can one switch from one company to another in FMCG? Many times rejection reasons are not clear and unable to identify by own.
Yeah, so I know that a lot of people suffer from recruiter ghosting. It's pretty common. I've also gone through it a couple of times. In fact, I remember one of the organizations made me travel to Bangalore from Hyderabad, and I had to splurge on the tickets because it was very last minute and they didn't even bother paying me for that. So I've had bad experience as well. There are some companies at least that do take the effort to close the loop. I know not everybody would do that, but I have done a video on recruiter ghosting, and I have shared some insights on how you can tackle it, right? So there has to be some kind of communication that happens from your end, wherein you're constantly in touch with the recruiter, letting them know, following up, and you will have to do that. Even if it is at the sake of your ego, please make sure that you do that, because at the end of the day, you need the job. So I would recommend if you can go and check that video. It's pretty insightful. I've shared what are the reasons why recruiter ghosting happens, and what causes it as well. Like what causes it and how do you tackle it, and actually how can you be at the top of the mind of the hiring manager. So while you have a recruiter, as the point of contact, there's nothing stopping you from getting in touch with the hiring manager on LinkedIn and just send them a note saying that, hi, I had interviewed with you a couple of months back. Let me know, if there is anything else that comes up into your team, and I'll be happy to. It has happened in my, when I was a recruiter. I actually saw hiring managers sending me profiles because they were getting those profiles on LinkedIn. So keep trying. Okay. Somebody has asked a very interesting question. How is it that you decided that a person has enough to retire? It is very subjective. And how do you decide to plan your career post-retirement? So when I say retire, I mean, I intend to not work for a corporate. I have plans, maybe having maybe my own startup. I don't know. I've not yet thought of it, but I think by then I would have gained a lot of experience. And I feel that after a point in time, it's important that you spend time with your family, and because honestly, my job has been a little stressful. I've been on the go, traveling, so it's a personal decision. And I also feel that saving your whatever the savings that you have, you should start doing that as soon as you get a job. That also helps you take that decision, because if you know how much you have, you know that you can retire at whatever point in time. So that helps do that math. Okay. I'll move on to the next one, and then we can come back to questions later, if that's okay. Now my screen is frozen, so please excuse me. Okay. Shivam, I think, okay. Did it move?
No, not yet. It's still on the second slide.
Okay, give me a sec. Okay. So in this slide, this is blank. Don't worry, I will be populating it soon. So this particular slide, I'll be talking about some of the life lessons that I have learned in my career. And again, feel free to go off mute or share your thoughts if any of them resonate with you. So the first one is knowing your self-worth. This one is very important, and you need to figure this out as quickly as possible. A lot of people, and when I say self-worth, only you will know your self-worth. Nobody will come and tell you. A manager will not come and tell you. Your parents will not come and tell you. Only you can know what you are worthy of, right? So this was something, maybe because of the manager that I had in the first 1 year of my career, I got to know my self-worth pretty quickly, and that really helped me navigate, the corporate world at ease, because I knew what I wanted, I knew how much I deserved, and so I was willing to really, push whenever I needed to and pull whenever I needed to. So this piece is something that is very, very important. If you whenever you are doing that transition, you have to be very, very sure on what exactly you want in life, right? The second one is, this one is interesting because at times and like I said, I'm adventurous, but there is like an inner voice that will tell you, do this, do that, and at times we don't listen to that voice. For me, this voice has really guided me. Even when it came to making that transition from a full-time job to a contractual role, I could hear this voice loud and clear telling me, you have to take it. You have to get out of it. Otherwise, you will not get this opportunity again. So it's very important that you always listen to that inner voice. Don't worry about what the society has to say. Society has to say a lot of things. And the best part is these advices will come from people that they themselves have not achieved what you have. So don't worry about what's going on in the world. Third one is my favorite, is never take yourself for granted. This one, it took me some time to figure this one out and start working on it, because again, coming from a background that I did, a tier 3 college, I thought that I was just meant to do this kind of work all my life. So I took myself for granted, and I was okay with the bare minimum expectations and aspirations that I had. But don't do that, because if you take yourself for granted, then the world will start taking yourself for granted. So never let the world take you for granted. Yeah. Identifying the catalysts. Now this one is important. I know at times we get very, irritated with what's happening externally. Like for example, if I could have quit, my job when the manager made my life not very happy, I could have quit then and there. But what I did instead was I did some, soul searching. I figured out if I quit, I'm not going to get a job anywhere, and that's it. My career is down the drain. I identified that as a catalyst and, did some research, figured out another way, got out of the team and found something that was more in line with my passion. So don't get too worked up about if something is going constantly bad, if you have a bad manager, if you have a bad team. Maybe the universe is trying to tell you something, and get that cue. Yeah. Take a bet on yourself. I think this also resonates with some of the people who ask that question around, how can somebody with 8 years move into this? The fact of the matter is that you are the only one that you need to convince before anybody else. And if you can, and trust me, convincing yourself is the hardest thing to do. Not many people can do it. I took some time to convince myself to do it. It took me about 2 years to figure out, what to do and to take a bet on myself. But I did, and it was worth it. Trust me. I still have colleagues, and again, no disrespect to anybody, who are still in Deloitte, who are probably doing the same role, the same job. And I feel bad for them that they were brilliant. They were much more brilliant than me. But that's how it is. So if you want to make things happen, you have to take a bet on yourself. Nobody else will. Be agile. So this is the answer to the question that, what happens if we get a less compensation, or, if the role is not. When you're making a career transition, you'll have to understand that not everything is hunky-dory, right? Because you're shifting your path from one path to the other, which means that there has to be a certain shift in your thinking as well. You'll have to be agile. You'll have to be flexible around your learnings, your experiences. You're basically starting from scratch, and you have to be okay with that. Just because you're starting from scratch doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just means that you have all of these previous experiences that will help you be better. But in order for the society to understand that, or the manager to understand that, or the organization to understand that, you have to prove yourself first, right? In order for you to prove yourself, you need to get that job. So be agile, be thoughtful and mindful about where you see yourself. And last but not the least, not every opportunity comes knocking at your door. The faster you understand this, the better it is, because at the end of the day, it is you who has to make things happen for yourself. Nobody is going to, and I'll be honest, it's happened with me. 80% of my opportunities that I have gotten have come because I knocked the door. Nobody, came and gave me that offer letter or something. I had to make things happen for myself. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I still apologize for the presentation. It's not that fancy. I'm not very good at it, but I'll be happy to take questions if there are.
Ruchika, yeah, there are some in Q&A, and there are a couple of questions on chat as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the last one. I can't see the name of the person, but it says, I have one question. Say you have been working in a very senior position and have about 28 years of experience. Your jobs and areas of responsibility and timely reporting agreed with the stakeholders. But if every half an hour shareholders interfere in your work and ask you to do this and that, then what will be your advice on this issue? Wow. Gosh, and I'm an HR, so I don't even know. Okay. I think a conversation helps always. I'm sure if you can get into a room or in a meeting with the stakeholders, shareholders, whoever they are, and tell them that you work as per these timelines, you're happy to give them an update towards the end of the week, and build that confidence in them. I think that and I think, again, we as humans, we tend not to do that. We don't want to have a conversation. I hate it. If I can just send an email, I'm happy. But I realize that over time, a conversation always helps, because the tone in which you are addressing the person, the way your body language, it just makes more sense than having that conversation over email. So just do that. Speak to them about what is it that works well for both of you. If you say that it's end of the week and they say, okay, can you send it towards, maybe on a Wednesday and on a Friday, then see what works for you. You'll have to balance that out. But yeah, have a conversation. Okay. Okay. So somebody asked me about the YouTube thing. Quite honestly, it's a selfish reason. I don't believe in becoming a YouTuber. I don't even know how many hours and views and all that. I was getting bombarded on LinkedIn, from students. And while it was really amazing, I was getting overwhelmed. I remember during internship season, so Microsoft has this internship, and I generally make a post. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I make a post saying that welcome interns to the Microsoft and all of that. And I received like over 10,000 requests in that 1 month or so. And then there were questions around how can we get into Microsoft? What is it that we should do? Can a person like me do it? What is it that we need to do? So I thought, rather than me answering each one of them, and there's so much to share, I said, okay, let me just create videos on YouTube, post it, tell them to go and watch it there, and then they'll get all their answers. So yeah, it was my way of tackling with the number of questions that I would get. Okay, Megha, I'm into, again, content and media industry past 10 years. Can I move into product? Or I think product management is like a very, nobody wants to move into HR, is it? Why is this? Is it because I'm into HR and you guys think that HR is like that? I haven't heard one question from HR. This is very bad. Okay, product management, like I said, you'll have to figure out a way. I would also suggest if you can get some more courses which are in line with product management, project management, that will really help you at least, put that on your resume and get noticed by the recruiter. Another way is while you're applying on the career page, always make sure that you can reach out to people who actually work there in mind. So for example, if it's a product management role that you want, do some research, find out on LinkedIn who are the senior people who are working there, make connections, share your resume with them. And when I say share your resume, don't just send them like one message saying that, hi, this is my resume, can you please refer me? That's not how you make connections. You'll have to like their content, whatever they're like, you understand, right? So you'll have to do that. It's going to be in a phase, it'll take time, but do all of that. But I would also definitely recommend research for some courses that really help will help you kind of be a good PM. So yeah, that would be my advice. Pratap, I would love to, but I don't want to show off, but like I have crossed 30,000 connections, and so LinkedIn does not allow me to accept any more connections. So I apologize. You can follow me instead. Okay, what are the catalysts? What do you mean by that? Okay, so catalysts are things that change the environment in which you are. So for example, when I joined Deloitte, I was very happy with my paycheck towards the end of the month. Everything was good. And when my new manager came in and, he made me realize that, this is not what I want to do. So he was the catalyst who made me actually see my self-worth and that I was not cut out for that job, right? Similarly, in my next role, the environment or the people that I was working with constantly told me that I was not going to be a recruiter for XYZ reasons, even though I had the zeal, I had the passion, but they were not willing to give me that chance. So this is what a catalyst means. There will be some people around you. I don't know if I can use the Hindi word for it. I think I'll try not to, but yeah, people who try to, irritate you. अब हिंदी में आप समझ जाना मैं क्या बोलने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ. Those are the catalysts. Okay. Any other questions, Shivam? I see.
Yeah, there are some on Q&A.
Okay, I do have a hard stop at 7, so I'll probably take one of the questions which is like most common, which can help answer. Neeraj, about leadership hiring, is it better to run a background check at the time of shortlisting the candidate when you receive an offer letter or intent, or better to leave that activity post final round of assessment? I think legally, we cannot do a background check before the offer letter is rolled out, because then there is no intent. We have not told the candidate that we are making that offer. So I think it's something to do with the legal aspect of it, and which is why we wait till the offer is rolled out, official offer is rolled out, the numbers are conveyed, whatever, and then the background check starts. So I think it's the legal aspect that comes into it. How do you handle mid-career crisis when newcomers are taking over? I don't think newcomers can take over anything, because I come with 9 years of experience and they come with no experience. Of course, there are instances where somebody is from a certain pedigree, and obviously they have certain thought process. I'm respectful of that. Have to be, but I will take their advice. I will bring them into the group. But it's teamwork, right? It's not like me against them or them against me. I don't need to prove myself to them. I need to prove myself to the boss, and I need to prove myself to the organization. So, and if I can, mentor them in some way, I would love to. Okay. People usually think non-recruitment, as rejection, but at trust, it's not test of their capabilities, but only possible mismatch or expectations of recruit. Any suggestions on how to deal with non-recruitment? Okay, so non-recruitment is basically when, at times, say for example, there is one opportunity that has come out, and there are 10 people who are interviewing. Out of those 10, one make it, right? And the rest of the 9 don't make it because that one position has been fulfilled by that one person. Now, what happens to the 9? They were good candidates, but we could not select them 9, right? So we've kind of rejected them. What helps is if you can still continue with that communication with the recruiter even after the process is done. That really helps. I have done that many times, and in fact recruiters do that. They don't want to nobody wants to go through the entire sourcing process once more. So whenever they reject or if they are not rejecting whatever, they do keep these candidates in mind, and if there is another opportunity, and opportunities keep coming up, they quickly go through that same candidature, speak to the candidate, and schedule them for interview. So it's smart work. So it always helps to have that constant communication. Let them know that you're still looking out or whatever. But yeah, make that attempt. Thank you, Murthy. I hope you enjoyed the session. How is moving jobs at a regular interval? Yeah, that was the bike. Okay, interval viewed at leadership level. What is the optimum tenure at leadership positions? Honestly, I know that there are certain mindsets that say that you need to show loyalty with a certain organization and all of that, but I've also seen leaders at very high levels who have probably shifted every 2 years. So it totally depends on the culture of the organization that you are interviewing with. If the culture is very open and they're very inclusive, then they would be okay with the job hops that you have done. But if they come with the mindset that no, it has to be like a certain way, and I'm sure you would know what the culture is from everybody. Like you kind of get to know, right? There are certain organizations which make you slog, and then there are certain organizations which don't. So you'll kind of figure it out. But yeah, it totally depends on the culture, if they are willing to. But I don't, honestly, for me, I don't see that as an issue. I think if a person is job hopping, it is because probably they're looking out for something that's more aligned to their passion, something that gives them energy. And so there's nothing wrong in it. There's nothing to be ashamed of that. I think you should wear it like a badge of honor. And if an organization cannot see that, then it's their loss, not yours. Okay, I'll take one last question, Shivam. And also my voice is going, so excuse me. Harsimran, I think I've answered your question about how to make the shift from telecom to a product kind of a company. Try to align it more with your role first, and then once you get into the organization, it's easier for you to make that switch. Because I'll also be honest, every organization, they get tons of applications. So if you see say for example a PM role that is flashed on Microsoft career page, there are at least minimum of 500 applications that are there, and out of those, most of them are the ones that are relevant to the job requirement. So now when you vet that, obviously, a recruiter would go for somebody who has that relevant experience. So in that context, I think it's easier for you to maybe make a jump in a similar domain and then move internally. Okay. Okay, I'll just take last question because this is to do with LinkedIn. Shamir, in LinkedIn, most of the time you don't get the communication as seniors don't revert. I feel it's a better way to say no to candidate rather than no revert. Asking for job is the basic reason job sites like LinkedIn. Okay. Shamir, I'll be honest. So, okay, not everybody is active on LinkedIn, right? There are people who probably log into LinkedIn to maybe update their, current job, or if they've got a promotion or something. So not everybody. I am one of those people that are active on LinkedIn. I don't have Instagram on my phone, but I have LinkedIn. So please don't judge me. But yeah, and it is okay. So you'll have to be smart about the people you're reaching out to. Do some check, do some, stalk them a bit. See when are they posting anything. If they are posting regularly, that means that they are active on LinkedIn. If you're sending a message to somebody who probably looks at their LinkedIn once in a year, it's just a dead end. Don't waste your time on that. Move on to somebody. And I'm sure there are many people, and especially now, there are a lot of people who are very active on LinkedIn. So do that bit of research and it'll help you. Okay, Shivam, I think that's about it.
Ruchika, I know it's a hard stop for you, but I see a very interesting question on chat. Is it better to have a one-page resume? Would you like to take that?
Yeah, Okay, so yeah, I think I did like 2 videos on this, and I think it was more for the students than for the experienced folks. And I was seeing resumes like 5-6 pages from these kids. I was like, what are you guys writing? What is there to write? Like I have, like 9 years of experience, and I have like now I have a 2-page resume. But yeah, there is no thumb rule. I do say that, if anything less than 5 years, then keep it to 1 page. Anything more than that, obviously, I'm sure it also depends on the number of organizations that you've changed. So it's good for you to have at least 2 pages. But my advice is don't keep it too worded. Like you don't have to write all of your responsibilities, what you did in that job, right? Keep it a little less, like try to trim it a bit. I know people also struggle with students are like, ma'am, but I can't put all my content in 1 page. And I'm like, yaar, itna koi likhne ki zarurat nahi hai. So you have to come across as crisp and impactful. I think that's something that has to be you don't have to write a story on your resume. That's something that anyways a recruiter will find out what your story is, what your background is, what is your skill set when they do speak to you. So keep it crisp. I'm sure there are wonderful templates that are available. Look at those templates and that'll really help you. Yeah, anything else, Shivam?
No, Ruchika, I guess it covers everything. And thank you so much for taking out time to share your experience and knowledge with all of us. I'd like to thank our learners for joining this session. With this, we'd like to end and wish a great weekend to everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Happy weekend. Bye.